Welcome to Sleepless Scientist, the channel where science gently drifts into your ears like a soft breeze through a quiet forest, helping you relax, unwind, and maybe, just maybe, fall asleep. Tonight, we explore a question that sounds like it came straight from a dream. A world not unlike ours, yet just a little more lunar. What if Earth had two moons? Not one lonely lunar neighbor circling us each month, but a second, constant companion sharing the sky, shaping tides, casting shadows, and perhaps rewriting the story of life as we know it. Thank you for tuning in. This video, accidentally, sparks your curiosity instead of lulling you to sleep. I'm truly sorry. But if you find yourself wide awake thinking about craters and tides by the end, do consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and commenting with your location and what time it is there right now. Your support helps this gentle science corner grow. Now, let's dim the lights of reality and open the windows of imagination, peering through them into a sky that has always had not one, but two moons. To understand how things would be different, we must first appreciate the immense influence our current moon has on Earth. It's not just a pretty pearl hanging in the sky. It stabilizes our planet's axial tilt, gently orchestrates the rhythms of tides, subtly affects animal behavior, and may even have played a role in the development of life itself. Imagine all of that doubled, or possibly more than doubled, depending on how big the second moon is and where it sits in the sky. Let's begin with a simple scenario. Imagine a second moon roughly the same size as our current one, orbiting at a distance similar to our existing moon, but perhaps trailing a few 100,000 kilometers behind. The first thing we'd notice is the night sky itself, to silvery companions rising and setting at different times, casting double shadows. On some nights, they'd be side by side. On others, they might play a silent game of celestial tag, one rising as the other sets. When full, they'd bathe the Earth in an almost eerie glow, bright enough to make nighttime feel like twilight. For astronomers and poets, this would be a gift. But for wildlife and ecosystems that evolved under the predictable rhythms of a single moon, it would be a profound change. Nocturnal animals rely on moonlight to hunt, hide, or mate. With two moons, the lunar brightness would increase and become less predictable. For example, with both moons full and high in the sky, their combined light could be 5 to 6 times brighter than a typical full moon today. Owls, wolves, moths, and frogs might all adjust their habits in response. Some species might vanish. Others adapt, and a few new ones might even evolve in response to the shifting moonlight cycle. Tides would be among the most visibly altered phenomena. Right now, our moon's gravitational pull creates two main tidal bulges, one on the side of Earth facing the moon, and one on the opposite side due to inertia. These cause the familiar high and low tides we observe each day. But add a second moon to the mix, and the oceans would become a far more dynamic stage. If the second moon were close in size and mass to the first, and orbiting in a similar plane but offset in its position, Earth would experience multiple overlapping tidal cycles. Instead of 2 high tides a day, we might see 3 or even 4, depending on the positioning of the moons. On days when both moons align on the same side, or directly opposite one another, they could combine their gravitational effects and create supertides, water levels far beyond anything we see today. Imagine coastal cities like New York or Tokyo regularly experiencing tides several meters higher than current levels. Infrastructure would need to be redesigned. And entire coastlines might look radically different from today's satellite images. But the implications wouldn't stop at the shore. Earth's rotation might slow down more quickly over geological time due to the increased tidal friction caused by a second moon. Our day length has already increased by about 1.7 milliseconds per century due to the moon's influence. With a second moon exerting its own pull, the deceleration could be accelerated. Days could lengthen more noticeably over time, altering circadian rhythms for all life on Earth. Eventually, centuries or millennia down the line, a day might last more than 24 hours. Humans might adjust their calendars, redefine work weeks, or even change the way they sleep. A second moon would also have a significant effect on Earth's axial tilt, which currently sits at about 23.5 degrees. This tilt is largely stabilized by the moon. Without it, Earth might wobble more erratically, leading to extreme climate shifts. But with two moons, the result could either be increased stability, their gravitational forces balance harmoniously, or chaotic precession, where Earth's tilt oscillates wildly. Seasons might vary year to year. One decade could experience mild winters. The next could plunge into icy extremes. This sort of climate unpredictability would have shaped life very differently, possibly preventing certain civilizations from flourishing or steering agriculture in a completely different direction. Then there's the question of eclipses. Right now, solar and lunar eclipses are relatively rare and spectacular events. With two moons, eclipse frequency would rise dramatically. If the second moon had a slightly different orbit and size, we might see overlapping eclipses, double shadows sweeping across continents, or simultaneous lunar and solar events. Ancient cultures might have developed entirely different mythologies to explain the heavens. The skies would have told different stories, inspired different religions, driven different calendar systems. The very way humanity looks up at the sky might have changed course. All of this depends heavily on where that second moon came from. If it formed alongside Earth and the current moon, perhaps as a fragment from the same impact event that created our moon, then it might have settled into a complementary orbit early on. But if it arrived later, perhaps as a captured asteroid or rogue moon, things could have been far more unstable. A captured moon might not stay in a stable orbit forever. Over time, its path could decay or spiral inward, risking a collision with Earth. The consequences of such a celestial impact would be devastating. A moon-sized object hitting Earth could wipe out species, boil oceans, and reset life itself. There's also the possibility that a second moon would never last at all. Depending on its orbit, it might gradually be pulled apart by Earth's gravity, forming a ring system like Saturn's. Imagine standing in the desert and looking up to see a faint shimmering band of lunar dust circling the planet. The night sky would glow with it, and Earth would gain a crown of light visible from every continent. Over millions of years, the interplay between the moons might lead to fascinating gravitational effects. Their orbits might lock into resonance, dancing in a predictable rhythm around Earth, always keeping time with one another. Or they might interact chaotically, shifting over time in complex and unpredictable ways. These dynamics would be deeply studied by scientists and perhaps feared by farmers, sailors, and skywatchers who rely on the consistency of lunar movement. Space exploration itself might have taken a different path, with a second moon to explore. Early astronauts might have visited whichever was closer or easier to land on. Lunar missions would be doubled. Perhaps there would be twin space programs, one for each moon, with entirely different goals and discoveries. Science fiction stories might center around two competing lunar colonies, each controlling their own moon base, beaming back, dueling broadcasts to Earth. And beyond all the practical and environmental effects, there's the cultural impact to consider. Two moons would have left their fingerprints across human art, language, and imagination. Poets might have written twin moon sonnets. Flags and emblems could have featured dual lunar crescents. Lovers gazing into the sky might have had to choose which moon to make wishes upon. Entire mythologies could have evolved differently, each moon perhaps associated with different gods, fates, or omens. The phrase "once in a blue moon" might need an entire revision, as lunar phases would be more complex and less predictable with a dual moon system. In essence, a second moon would not merely be a celestial bonus. It would alter the fabric of Earth's behavior shape biological evolution, change how humans live, and even shift the course of our scientific history. The question is no longer what if Earth had two moons, but what kind of Earth would that truly be? As the second moon arcs silently across the sky, the intricacies of its presence ripple far beyond mere tides or eclipses. To understand the deeper implications, it helps to consider how such a twin moon system might have sculpted the formation of Earth's early geology and atmospheric evolution. From the earliest days of Earth's cooling crust, having a second lunar body overhead would likely have influenced tectonic behavior, volcanic activity, and the thickness of the atmosphere itself. Our single moon already plays a role in influencing Earth's internal dynamics through tidal flexing, subtly tugging on the mantle and potentially encouraging volcanic activity in certain geological windows. If a second moon with comparable mass joined this rhythmic celestial pulling, the tectonic dance of Earth's plates might have followed a very different choreography. Plate boundaries might shift faster or slower depending on how the added gravitational stressors interacted. Volcanic hotspots could have become more widespread or more focused. Ancient volcanic traps, like the Siberian or Deccan traps, may have erupted differently, potentially altering their climatic impacts and the outcomes of past mass extinctions. As Earth rotated beneath the push and pull of two moons, the atmosphere too would feel the strain. Tidal forces extend into the air above us, creating atmospheric tides, less dramatic than ocean tides, but still significant. With a second moon amplifying these patterns, jet streams might become more intense or more chaotic, altering climate zones and wind systems across the globe. Storms could have become more common, more intense, or more irregular. In such a world, civilizations that rely on stable weather cycles for agriculture, travel, or even trade would develop new methods to adapt or predict the sky's unpredictable moods. One curious consequence of a dual moon Earth might be the development of more complex calendar systems. Our current Gregorian calendar is based on the solar year, but lunar calendars have played central roles in cultures around the world. Imagine the difficulty of tracking two separate lunar cycles, each with its own phases, eclipses, and orbital peculiarities. One moon might complete its cycle in 27 days, while the other takes 31. Their alignments would create a constantly shifting celestial rhythm, never repeating exactly. Religious festivals, planting seasons, and ancient astrology would have been more elaborate and diverse. Societies might develop parallel calendars, one for each moon, with holidays based on rare alignments or dual full moons occurring once every few years. In regions where both moons were often visible together, human psychology might subtly change. The moon affects mood, sleep cycles, and even hormone regulation. With two moons, especially when both are full, the increased nighttime brightness and extended periods of lunar exposure might exacerbate or alter these biological rhythms. Sleep might be shorter. Dreams might be more vivid. Folklore might include not just werewolves under a full moon, but entirely new creatures shaped by the light of twin moons. One could imagine ancient traditions warning of omens when both moons turned red during a rare double lunar eclipse. Visual artists and architects in such a society would also face a unique challenge. Shadows would be cast in different directions. In a twin moonlit night, a single object might cast multiple shadows of varying lengths and directions. A tree might stretch a shadow eastward from one moon and a longer, softer shadow northwest from the other. Over time, this might influence art, painting styles, and even the design of buildings. Cities could be oriented not just for solar exposure, but to avoid or embrace the dramatic shifting moon shadows during key nights of the month. Human navigation, especially at sea, would take on new complexity. Mariners have long used the moon and stars for orientation and timekeeping. With two moons in the sky, sailors of the past might have developed intricate systems to track their positions. using angular separation between the moons to estimate location. Navigation tools would be dual-calibrated, and certain sea routes might only be attempted during specific lunar configurations to avoid dangerous tidal surges or misleading moonlight. Turning our gaze outward, the presence of two moons might change how early astronomers understood their place in the cosmos. The predictable nature of lunar motion was one of the first signs of cosmic regularity for ancient thinkers. With two orbiting bodies, especially if they interacted gravitationally with each other, the system would be more complex. Retrograde motion, orbital resonance, and mutual lunar eclipses could all occur, giving early stargazers an even more puzzling sky to decode. Some might interpret the two moons as symbolic of duality in the universe, order and chaos, light and shadow, destiny and choice. Meanwhile, let's imagine the moons themselves. Over time, their surfaces would evolve differently. Even if they began with similar geology, variations in orbit would expose them to differing amounts of solar wind, micrometeorite impacts, and gravitational stress. One moon might become heavily cratered and dusty, a pale skeleton of ancient impacts. The other, slightly closer to Earth or caught in more tidal heating, might be more geologically active, boasting ancient lava flows or signs of surface shifts. When human eyes first peered through telescopes, these differences would spark debates over which moon was older, which one held secrets of early Earth, or which might harbor frozen water or valuable minerals. It is also possible that over millennia, the presence of two moons would spark cultural divisions based on lunar loyalty. One hemisphere might favor the first moon, let's call it Luna, while the other venerates the second, perhaps named Selene. Legends might grow around each, their phases seen as signs or signals, their eclipses revered or feared. Kings might be crowned under the light of one moon, while ceremonies of mourning occur under the shadow of the other. Entire civilizations could form unique lunar identities, with flags, anthems, and ideologies shaped by their chosen celestial patron. Human religion and spirituality might reflect this binary sky. Duality is already a recurring theme in many belief systems: light and dark, good and evil, sun and moon. With two moons, new stories would emerge. Perhaps one moon is seen as a guardian, the other a trickster. Or maybe both are divine siblings, battling in the heavens, their celestial paths retelling ancient myths every night. Temples might be built to track not just the solstices, but precise moon alignments, waiting for rare moments when both moons meet in the sky. Such alignments could be tied to prophecies, festivals, or monumental decisions. Then there's the question of time. With two moons, timekeeping could evolve in ways both fascinating and maddening. Imagine a culture that counts days by one moon's phases, but months by the other. Or one that uses lunar conjunctions when both moons rise together as a unit of time. Modern clocks might require dual lunar trackers, and holidays could drift dramatically from year to year. Leap days, leap months, and even leap years might proliferate to keep everything in sync. Earth's shadow, cast into space, would also have a more significant effect. During a lunar eclipse today, Earth's shadow can completely envelop our moon, with two moons at varying distances. One might be regularly eclipsed, while the other remains bright. On nights of partial eclipses, the sky could appear almost surreal. One moon in shadow, the other shining like a pearl. These dramatic visuals might inspire centuries of art, music, and science. Children in a twin moon world might grow up playing games based on their moon's phases. Nursery rhymes and bedtime stories would include both. And fairy tales might describe travelers guided by the eastern moon or monsters hidden during a double crescent. Picture books would show two glowing orbs in the sky, each with its own face. Craters forming expressions that children learn to read like cosmic mood rings. Science fiction itself would be transformed. Stories might not center around one lunar landing, but competing explorations of both moons. Wars in orbit could be waged between factions on Luna and Selene. Authors might imagine moon bridges, gigantic structures linking Earth to each moon. In some tales, one moon might be home to aliens, while the other remains untouched. The possibilities spiral infinitely outward, as they often do in science. As Earth spins on beneath its double guardians, humanity would never again feel alone in the cosmos. There is comfort in knowing the sky is shared with more than stars. With two moons, every phase, eclipse, and shadow would be twice as layered, twice as beautiful, and twice as mysterious. And perhaps, late at night, when all is quiet and the world sleeps under dual lunar light, someone would still look up and wonder, not what it means, but what it feels like to be watched over not by one lonely sentinel, but by a pair of ancient eyes drifting silently through space. As the two moons glide through the heavens, their presence gradually weaves itself into every thread of Earth's story. The effect is not merely astronomical or environmental. It becomes psychological, evolutionary, even geopolitical. With two luminous sentinels in the sky, the very way humanity conceives of night, mystery, and motion changes. Our mental maps of the cosmos shift, and Earth itself becomes a more complex place, orbiting not just under the influence of the sun, but under the gentle duress of twin gravitational companions. To grasp the evolutionary implications, imagine early life on Earth billions of years ago, when primitive organisms were emerging in the oceans. These life forms responded to cycles of light and dark, tides and calm, in rhythms shaped by the moon. Add a second moon into that primeval equation, and suddenly the rhythms become more intricate. Tidal zones shift more frequently. Intertidal organisms must adapt to faster or more erratic flooding and drying cycles. This could lead to earlier development of mobility, better tolerance to environmental stress, or entirely new life strategies. The evolutionary timeline itself might speed up or branch into paths unknown in our single-moon reality. Consider the Cambrian explosion. Could the added complexity of dual lunar influences have catalyzed an even earlier or more dramatic diversification of life? Organisms might develop more sophisticated biological clocks to manage multiple overlapping cycles of light and gravitational pull. The evolution of vision, for example, might be accelerated by the varied nighttime illumination. Eyes that can adjust to double lunar brightness or pick out the moons even in overlapping phases could have given species advantages that shaped entire ecosystems. On land, bioluminescent species might be less common, since nighttime light would rarely be truly dark. Plants might evolve to react to the full spectrum of lunar phases. Their flowering or leaf-dropping cycles aligned, not just with solar patterns, but with the twin orbits of Luna and Selene. Photosensitive organisms could develop dual-phase cycles, triggering different behaviors under each moon's light. Even fungi, which often fruit in response to moonlight and humidity, might take on seasonal patterns reflecting a more complex lunar matrix. Fast forward to the rise of early humans. Our ancestors were already fascinated by the sky, tracking the moon's motion, drawing its phases on cave walls and weaving lunar myths into the earliest languages. With two moons, this fascination would deepen. Societies might divide themselves by lunar allegiance. Tribes in one region could follow the cycle of Luna, aligning hunting rituals and harvests with its orbit. Another culture might follow Selene, timing migrations and births by its glow. Over generations, these divisions would crystallize into calendar systems, mythologies, and cultural identities deeply rooted in lunar duality. Architecture would reflect these identities. Ancient observatories might feature twin lunar sightlines. Temples might cast symbolic dual shadows, and monuments could be designed to align with rare events when both moons rise together or cross the sky at opposing points. Stone circles, ziggurats, and pyramids might carry inscriptions that reference dual lunar calendars, predicting conjunctions or documenting omens witnessed under 2 full moons. Over time, these symbolic divisions might carry real political consequences. Entire empires might define themselves based on lunar timing. One kingdom might claim sovereignty under Luna, conducting coronations only during its eclipse, while another rival realm aligns its victories with the rise of Selene. Lunar iconography might decorate flags, coins, and royal seals. Wars could be waged not just for territory or power, but for dominance over lunar calendars and celestial alignment. Treaties might only be signed under twin full moons. Entire legal systems might be written in accordance with lunar conjunctions. Education systems would reflect this duality. Children might be taught not 1, but 2 lunar alphabets, each associated with different constellations, cultural values, or historical epochs. Astronomy would be a foundational subject across the world. Classes could focus on predicting when the moons would align, eclipse, or tug at each other. Students might memorize patterns of shadow and light that repeat only once every few centuries, like cosmic poetry encoded in motion. The natural world would also carry the imprint of 2 moons. Animal migrations might become more elaborate as birds, whales, and insects respond to overlapping lunar signals. Predators could adapt to the dual lighting, learning to hunt in near daylight conditions during rare double full moons. Prey animals might develop more complex hiding strategies. Some species might even become attuned to one moon over the other, nocturnal under Luna, crepuscular under Selene, depending on their evolutionary lineage. Meanwhile, the human circadian rhythm, already sensitive to lunar light, could undergo generations of adaptation. In regions where both moons are often visible at night, people might develop longer waking hours, breaking the traditional division of day and night. Societies might emerge with a 4-phase daily schedule: daylight, twilight, dual moonlight, and full dark. Entire languages could evolve with terms describing lunar hours, defined by the presence and position of the moons. Medical science would adapt as well. Studies might reveal that blood pressure, heart rate, and hormonal cycles are influenced differently by each moon's phase. Therapies could be tailored to an individual's lunar sensitivity. Some patients might respond better to treatments administered during Selene's waning crescent, while others show improved recovery under Luna's first quarter. Hospitals might even track dual lunar calendars to schedule surgeries or predict psychological episodes. In the arts, music would blossom in new directions. Composers could create symphonies based on lunar cycles, writing movements that mirror the dance of the moons across the night sky. Painters might explore the contrast between a moonlit beach under Luna's full glare and the soft, ghostly light of Selene peeking through cloud cover. Poets would find endless metaphor in the moon's interaction: how one waxes while the other wanes, how one hides while the other reveals. Duality, reflection, and balance would become recurring themes in artistic expression. Religious and philosophical thought would similarly evolve. Spiritual leaders might speak of the 2 lights, beacons of wisdom and mystery, truth and illusion. Some faiths could see them as siblings, locked in eternal dialogue. Others might regard one as benevolent, the other as mischievous. Pilgrimages could be scheduled during rare alignments when both moons cross the same zenith. Prophets might claim to receive visions during eclipses when both moons pass through Earth's shadow simultaneously. Sermons might speak of the moral lessons found in their cycles, the inevitability of change, the beauty of imperfection, the necessity of contrast. In more modern times, scientific exploration would shift dramatically. Telescopes would study not just lunar craters and regolith, but the gravitational interaction between Luna and Selene. Lunar rovers might compete to be the first to circumnavigate both bodies. Space agencies could develop dual launch windows, calculating fuel trajectories based on the position of both moons. Mission control rooms might hang twin lunar maps beside. The Earth globe. In the age of satellites, new constellations of artificial moons would be required. Earth's telecommunications, GPS, and climate monitoring systems would need to account for the gravitational and optical interference of two bright, natural satellites. Solar panel design might shift to optimize for partial lunar shadowing. Lunar power stations might be built to harness not just solar light, but the reflective albedo from both moons. Imagine twin silver mirrors beaming light down to Earth, supplementing the energy grid in regions that rarely see the sun. Culturally, people might begin naming their children after lunar cycles, not just in relation to Luna, but Selene too. One might hear names derived from double moonrise or silver shadow. Fashion trends could mirror the phase contrast, dual-toned robes symbolizing waxing and waning, or accessories aligned to a specific lunar orbit. Jewelry might include miniature moon charts or pendants shaped like overlapping crescents. Ultimately, the presence of two moons would render Earth a uniquely theatrical stage in the cosmos. No other known planet hosts two bright, large moons visible to the naked eye. It would make Earth not only rare, but deeply poetic. Visitors from other worlds, if they existed, would look upon this blue planet and see it as something magical, a world danced over by two watchful companions, casting twin shadows over oceans, mountains, and mines. As Earth turns beneath them, the moons continue their eternal motion, carving cycles into stone, water, and thought. Their gravity anchors not only tides and tectonics, but entire civilizations, worldviews, and dreams. It is a relationship of push and pull, seen in ocean waves, in whispering myths, and in the silent arcs of twin luminaries who never sleep. In a world blessed or burdened with two moons, the relationship between humans and the cosmos becomes increasingly intimate, not just physically, but culturally and philosophically. As the two moons perform their nightly ballet, civilizations would come to anticipate, ritualize, and depend upon the interplay between Luna and Selene. Their silent influence would bleed into law, economy, diplomacy, and the architecture of civilization itself. Imagine the rise of a global economy shaped by lunar influence. In our current world, the timing of harvests, fishing seasons, and even financial markets subtly responds to natural cycles. With two moons affecting tides, animal behavior, and nightlight, economies would develop intricate lunar-based strategies. Fishing industries might rely on complex tidal maps showing intersections of gravitational peaks. Certain species might be more active during specific combinations of lunar phases, leading to highly specialized industries based on moon-synchronized harvesting. Farmers could plan crops not just by sun and season, but by dual moonlight exposure, experimenting with sowing under one moon and harvesting under the other. In cities, commerce could adopt lunar branding, using moon alignments to create shopping festivals or financial quarters. Banks might develop calendars of lunar convergence, predicting cycles of productivity or lull based on the position and phase of each moon. The term moon economy would gain real meaning. Retailers might advertise sales only during dual full moons, claiming their goods are blessed by the twin lights. Superstitions would entwine with marketing. Gold might be considered more valuable under Selene's glow, while silver is sold exclusively during Luna's waning crescent. Diplomacy, too, would evolve in peculiar directions. Nations might schedule summits during rare lunar conjunctions, believing these moments foster clarity or honesty. Treaties might reference celestial alignments in their texts, with clauses activated only under certain lunar conditions. Disputes over lunar territory or the timing of joint celestial events could lead to international tensions, even war. One country might launch a satellite that reflects light from Luna onto Selene's surface, igniting a public relations crisis about lunar pollution. The legal world would need to adapt. Court systems might operate on dual lunar calendars, with different proceedings assigned to each moon's phase. A case might begin under Luna's gibbous phase and reach verdict under Selene's waxing crescent. Lunar anniversaries would hold legal power. Inheritance clauses might only activate when both moons are aligned in their first quarter. Judges might symbolically wear robes in the color of the dominant moon during the night of sentencing. In transportation, everything from shipping lanes to airplane routes could be affected by dual lunar cycles. Pilots might be trained in navigation techniques using both moons, adjusting for glare, shadow, or gravitational turbulence. In coastal cities, bridges and ports might feature digital tidal displays that predict extreme sea level shifts during rare dual syzygies, moments when both moons align with Earth and Sun. Urban planning would integrate moon awareness with structures built to resist regular flooding caused by supertides from combined gravitational effects. Tourism might flourish around celestial events. Global gatherings could form around double eclipses, drawing crowds as both moons darken in Earth's shadow. Sky festivals might celebrate the simultaneous rise of the moons above the horizon, especially in places where terrain allows viewers to witness both in a single glance. Entire industries might exist solely to help people photograph or witness these events, with tours hiking to mountain summits or sailing to remote islands for the clearest views. Photography schools would teach lunar lighting compositions. Lunar painters might develop techniques to replicate the dual shadows cast on objects, each slightly offset, as if the Earth itself lived beneath a cosmic spotlight. Religious practices would intensify around lunar interactions. Pilgrimages, holidays, and fasts would multiply in response to the complexity of dual cycles. Some belief systems might view each moon as a channel to divine will, one representing the material world, the other the spiritual. Temples might be carved with twin domes that track the arcs of each moon through the night sky. Sacred texts could describe moments of cosmic harmony when Luna and Selene hang perfectly opposite each other in the heavens, bringing spiritual balance. Prophets might arise, their teachings based on visions received during the rare lunar opposition, when both moons are fully visible on opposite sides of the sky. New philosophies would blossom around lunar motion. Some thinkers might argue that humanity mirrors the duality of the moons, conflicted between reason and emotion, shadow and clarity. Lunar schools of ethics could emerge, with doctrines based on the reflective nature of moonlight, urging followers to mirror the good in others or cycle through phases of introspection and action. Philosophical arguments might invoke lunar geometry as metaphor for dual truths existing simultaneously, visible only from different angles of thought. On the scientific front, climatologists would track the interaction of the moons on ocean currents, measuring how temperature gradients shift when both satellites pull in opposite directions. Engineers might study how repeated gravitational stress from dual tidal cycles affects the integrity of offshore platforms, ships, or underwater cables. Marine biologists could discover previously unknown deep-sea species that rise to shallower waters during triple tide events, combinations of solar and dual lunar gravity peaks. Data scientists would develop models to predict months of high biological productivity based on complex moon cycles. Meanwhile, geologists would explore how the Earth's crust has responded to billions of years of tugging from both moons. Seismic activity might show subtle correlations with specific lunar alignments. Earthquakes or slow slip events could become more predictable when mapped against lunar tension buildup. The crust beneath ocean basins might be thinner or more fractured due to overlapping gravitational flexing. Volcanoes could erupt with greater frequency during lunar resonance events, where gravitational harmonics reach a critical amplitude. Beyond Earth, the moons themselves would become targets of intense scientific rivalry. One might become the site of Earth's first lunar colony, while the other remains a base for robotic science missions. Engineers would develop spacecraft trajectories that loop between moons, creating a lunar highway. Space elevators might one day be proposed on both, with tethering stations sending cargo to and from Earth on synchronized schedules. Mining companies could race to extract rare minerals from both surfaces, comparing isotopic differences to trace their formation history. One moon might have more frozen water, becoming the dominant hub for human habitation and industry. The psychological effect of growing up in a two-moon world would also leave subtle but pervasive marks. Children might be taught to draw the sky with two circles by instinct, seeing the night as incomplete without both. Their bedtime stories would involve lunar twins who quarrel or cooperate depending on their phases. Folklore would tell of days when one moon grew jealous and darkened, or nights when both smiled down in luminous unity. Language itself would transform. Expressions like "once in a blue moon" would splinter into variants. Perhaps "once in a double glow" or "under Selene's secret." Phrases could evolve to reference complex lunar behaviors, such as a wax and wane agreement or dancing between shadows. Poets would coin words describing moments when both moons are visible through mist, or when one is seen reflected in a lake while the other hides behind clouds. Songs might be written to honor a rare night of twin eclipses, blending science with emotion in verse. Human intimacy, too, might gain new rhythms. Lunar cycles have always been linked to reproduction, menstruation, and fertility. With two cycles in play, entire relationship patterns might evolve. Romantic traditions could involve walking under a crescent of one moon and making vows beneath a full phase of the other. Weddings might be scheduled during rare dual first quarters, symbolic of mutual beginnings. Astrology, though unscientific, would certainly find fertile ground in a world with two moons, developing elaborate charts that predict personality traits based on birth moments during complex lunar configurations. In the political sphere, debates would emerge about lunar sovereignty. Should each moon belong to all humanity? Or should they be partitioned, like continents, with regions designated for exploration, habitation, or preservation? Legal scholars might draft a lunar convention outlining ethical rules for mining, colonization, or defense systems based on the precedent of Earth's international treaties. As generations pass and Earth's skies remain adorned with two familiar companions, human culture would find continuity and comfort in their cycles. Children would pass down stories told by moonlight. Communities would gather beneath dual crescents, and scientists would stand on one moon gazing at the other, wondering how the cosmos orchestrated such a delicate balance. The question might then shift from what if Earth had two moons to what if it ever had only one. For a species born beneath twin lights, the idea of a single lonely moon would seem alien, unimaginably dim, unremarkably ordinary. The dual moons would become not just part of the night sky, but of the human soul, mirrored in our myths, minds, and memories forever. As the centuries unfold under a twin-moon sky, the Earth quietly adapts in every layer of its being: geological, biological, cultural, and psychological. The moons become more than companions to Earth. They are co-authors of its story. Their gravity sculpts its oceans. Their phases write invisible rhythms into the minds of its people. And their ever-changing dance becomes a cosmic clock ticking through generations, marking moments not in hours and minutes, but in eclipses, alignments, and shimmering shadows across mountain and sea. One of the most profound long-term consequences of a two-moon Earth is the alteration of evolutionary pressures across millions of years. The presence of two distinct but powerful gravitational forces changes the very shape of the planet's waters. Instead of the relatively simple high-low tide patterns of a single moon Earth, coastlines experience complex cycles, shifting basins, moving brackish zones, and a greater range of water depth fluctuations on a daily and seasonal basis. This in turn influences the development of coastal species, the ecosystems of estuaries, and even the spread of land plants from sea to shore. Some species may evolve to specialize in environments with rapid tidal changes, becoming efficient. Diggers, clingers, or jumpers better suited to an unpredictable shoreline. Amphibians might develop unique adaptations for navigating zones that alternate between water and air multiple times in a day. Fish might breed in tighter windows during dual lunar supertides, accelerating their reproductive cycles. Coral reefs might grow in specific geometries designed to withstand or embrace the hydrodynamic shifts caused by two constantly interacting tidal systems. Meanwhile, inland weather patterns are influenced as the tidal forces of the atmosphere interact with surface winds. The moons not only move the oceans, but also lift atmospheric bulges, giant invisible waves of air that, in a two-moon world, could become more pronounced. Meteorological science in such a world would develop in different directions, not just tracking storms and pressure systems, but modeling lunar atmospheric interplay. Forecasts might include moon phase convergence advisories, where certain alignments are known to increase the probability of hurricanes, droughts, or unusual rainfall in specific regions. The moons even shape fire. Lightning patterns, humidity, and air pressure fluctuate subtly under the influence of the moons. Forests might adapt to different fire cycles, and animals may evolve migration patterns that avoid periods when both moons are waxing, times that perhaps correlate with increased lightning activity. Human fire mythology could involve not just Prometheus and flame, but the double lunar blessing or curse upon seasons of burn and rebirth. In remote regions, indigenous peoples might develop unique mythologies around this. Perhaps the hunter moon of Luna marks the start of dry season migration, while the wet moon of Selene brings monsoon rains. Rituals would evolve to appease both: fire dances under Luna's light, rain chants under Selena's silver arc. Over time, entire cosmologies could grow around the timing, brightness, and relative motion of the moons. The psychological implications stretch further. Then mood swings or sleep quality. Under a constantly changing lunar sky, with alternating phases and complex lighting, perception itself evolves differently. Night vision might become sharper in species, including humans, due to the frequent exposure to moderate nocturnal light. Art forms might focus more on contrasts, dualities, and transitions. Shadow puppetry in one region could rely on the overlap of lunar shadows, creating performances impossible under a single light source. Photographers and painters would develop unique techniques to capture the ghost-like textures of a sky lit unevenly from two angles, with shadows crossing, canceling, or doubling upon one another. The moons become symbolic in every corner of society. Flags of nations might depict both moons in opposing crescents, facing inward like guardians of unity, or outward like symbols of expansion. Currency could bear their images: lunar phases representing growth and decline, economic flux encoded in the heavens. Sports seasons might begin under a certain lunar alignment, or championships held only when both moons are visible at their highest point in the sky. Architecture becomes a practical and aesthetic expression of lunar reality. Homes are designed with skylights specifically aligned for moonrise events. Public buildings include moonstone markers embedded into floors and walls, casting thin beams of reflected light when a moon passes directly overhead. Some cultures may even build lunar chimneys, hollow columns cut through tall structures to frame a view of the moons in special configurations. These structures could become sacred, astronomical, or simply cultural curiosities, celebrated in local festivals or marked on calendars as moon tunnels. The influence of two moons even echoes in our science fiction. Writers spin tales of alternate Earths where a third moon enters, disrupting the delicate balance. Others dream of moons drifting closer to Earth, creating catastrophic tidal waves and rearranging continents. In some imagined futures, the moons are mined for energy, or one is turned into a habitable dome city, while the other becomes a massive telescope directed into the depths of space. The very presence of two moons reshapes our dreams of space, exploration, and colonization. In reality, technological evolution under two moons diverges in subtle but profound ways. Telescopic astronomy begins earlier, driven by the need to track complex lunar orbits. Orbital mechanics becomes more advanced at an earlier stage of civilization, due to the necessity of predicting moon interactions. When spaceflight begins, mission planning incorporates two gravitational wells, two sets of radiation environments, and two opportunities for landing or slingshot maneuvers. The space race could focus not just on reaching a single moon, but on mastering the space between them, a dynamic zone of gravity shifts, orbit harmonics, and shadow play. Even agriculture is shaped by the sky. Farmers may learn that root vegetables fare better when planted under Selene's waning phase, while leafy crops thrive with Luna's waxing crescent. Over centuries, entire systems of biodynamic farming evolve, encoded with folklore. Refined through trial and error, yet anchored in lunar patterns. Greenhouses may include lighting systems that mimic specific moon phases, simulating dual lunar environments to maximize crop yield. Vertical farms in lunar-themed cities might be tuned to the rhythm of each moon, one set of crops growing in response to Luna light, another under Selene. In modern entertainment, the moons become ever-present. Songs speak of nights with one moon hidden behind cloud, and the other blazing in brilliance. Films use dual moons to build tension, romance, or surreal atmosphere. Virtual reality experiences simulate rare celestial events, letting viewers witness an orbital resonance from a high desert plateau, or watch a dual eclipse through the eyes of an eagle gliding above a misty valley. The language continues too. Shift to Selene night might be one that is particularly clear, sharp, and cool in hue. A Luna sigh could be a poetic term for a gentle wind that rustles leaves beneath a half-moon's glow. Children might learn terms for sky textures when both moons are crescent, when one is high and the other low, or when they seem to orbit in sync. New calendar units may evolve, perhaps a moondrift to describe a 20-day cycle where the moons align in a particular pattern not seen again for years. In space research, one moon could become a base of operation while the other is preserved for astronomical observation. International accords might restrict mining on Selene to protect its unique reflective properties, while Luna becomes a bustling hub of industry. Each moon would develop its own identity, its own mythology, even its own geopolitical drama. Conspiracy theories might arise around structures seen in telescopic images. Cults could worship one moon while fearing the other. Astrologers and skeptics alike would debate the moon's influence on fate, biology, and consciousness. In time, the moons would not just reflect sunlight, but reflect the sum total of human imagination and experience. They would be embedded in language, art, science, and faith. Their presence would be constant and yet always shifting, like the lives they quietly shape. The story of a two-moon Earth is a story of evolution and adaptation, of imagination and discovery. It is a reminder that even the smallest differences in cosmic arrangement, a second bright body circling us, can ripple outward to affect every leaf, every tide, every song, and every human soul. Under their gaze, Earth would become not only more luminous, but more layered, more alive. As humanity marches into the distant future, beneath the gaze of its twin moons, the world begins to reflect their light in new and unexpected ways. Society adapts not only to the gravitational nudges and complex celestial rhythms, but to the psychological and cultural fingerprints left by Luna and Selene over millennia. These moons, once mere rocky satellites, have become symbols, systems, and sentinels, each orbit carving stories into the crust of the Earth and the consciousness of its people. One of the most striking features of a two-moon Earth is the heightened sense of celestial awareness embedded in everyday life. Much like the sun's movement across the sky once defined agricultural time, the phases and positions of Luna and Selene now form a continuous calendar that permeates every aspect of society. People wake not just with the sun, but with the moons. They eat, work, celebrate, and mourn under configurations of light and shadow that change day by day and rarely repeat exactly. In such a world, architecture evolves from a functional art to a lunar symphony. Buildings are no longer just shaped by sunlight, but by the intricate choreography of the moons. Homes are designed with windows and towers that track moonrises like sundials track hours. In some cities, entire neighborhoods are built around moon squares, where residents gather when both moons align overhead. Structures are etched with lines and stones that mark the paths of the moons during rare conjunctions. Some temples have openings that channel moonlight only once every few years, casting pale beams across ancient altars in moments of sacred symmetry. Meanwhile, in education, lunar studies are considered as fundamental as reading or arithmetic. Children learn to read the moons like a second language, memorizing the cycles of waxing and waning, nodal crossings, and eclipse shadows. Schools host lunar fairs during rare dual phenomena, with students presenting models, poetry, and songs dedicated to the moon's history and influence. Astronomers and teachers alike are celebrated not just for their knowledge, but for their ability to narrate the dance of Luna and Selene as a living, breathing myth. And myths are everywhere. Folklore, once a patchwork of sun gods and storm deities, is now dominated by twin lunar figures. In one culture, Luna is the guardian, steady, full, watching over the tides and births of whales, while Selene is the dreamweaver, shifting and sly, guiding lovers and thieves alike under her crescent glow. In another, the two moons are sisters separated in an ancient war, cursed never to meet in the same sky at once. Their rare conjunctions are said to mark moments of great change, births of prophets, deaths of kings, or the turning of eras. This mythology bleeds into art. Poets write in duets, mimicking the moon's counterpoint. Painters develop styles called lunar dualism, layering light and shadow in symmetrical opposition. Musicians compose sonatas based on overlapping moonrise patterns, letting chords rise and fall in rhythm with orbital periods. Film and theater embrace duality as a core motif, storylines featuring mirrored characters, parallel worlds, and destinies, entangled like lunar orbits. As these moons guide human thought, they also shape human infrastructure. In transportation, lunar scheduling becomes crucial. Airlines and ships adjust their paths to compensate for gravitational anomalies caused by both moons. Engineers build tidal bridges that rise and lower automatically in sync with lunar-influenced water levels. Mountain passes and deserts see moon-guided navigation tools in use, handheld devices tracking light angles, used by hikers and adventurers to find their way under complicated skies. In space exploration, Luna and Selene become not just destinations, but launch platforms, laboratories, and crossroads. Spaceports are built on both moons, forming a network of supply chains between Earth, its satellites, and any colonies established beyond. Mining operations harvest rare elements, while observatories record light from galaxies older than time, using the moon's stable platforms for unprecedented clarity. Researchers establish gravity laboratories where experiments take advantage of the competing lunar pools to test how materials behave under complex stress fields. Medical science follows the moons too. Hospitals schedule treatments, deliveries, and surgeries during specific lunar configurations. supported by studies showing minute yet statistically significant differences in patient outcomes depending on phase and alignment. Birth rates, sleep patterns, and even recovery speeds are tracked against the backdrop of dual moonlight. Lunar-sensitive therapies emerge, sessions held during certain nights said to enhance mood, stabilize anxiety, or trigger neuroplasticity. In psychology, the moons are central metaphors. Therapists may ask which moon the patient identifies with, the steady guardian or the shifting dreamer. New personality theories emerge around lunar typology, connecting emotional behavior to lunar phase sensitivity. Sleep clinics design dual lunar lighting environments, adjusting hue, intensity, and rhythm to match natural cycles for insomniacs and shift workers. Urban life, too, is deeply intertwined with lunar behavior. Cities glow not only from artificial lights but from intentional lunar reflection. Giant silver panels line rooftops to direct moonlight into streets during festivals or celebrations. Lunar-powered public lighting systems activate when both moons are high, saving energy and providing soft, eerie illumination. Some buildings incorporate adaptive moonlight architecture, facades that shift or open to capture and redistribute moonbeams in decorative or symbolic patterns. Political borders may even reflect lunar divisions. One continent aligns itself with Luna, featuring its image on currency, stamps, and national emblems. Another pledges allegiance to Selene, with lunar observatories on every mountain and government buildings aligned to Selene's key eclipses. These cultural alignments foster both unity and rivalry. Lunar sports tournaments might pit Luna-aligned nations against Selene followers, drawing passionate crowds and fueling narratives of ancient celestial rivalry reborn in modern times. Spiritual life embraces the complexity. Some sects hold services only during opposing moon phases, Luna waxing, Selene waning, believing that truth emerges from contrast. Others seek moments of harmony when both moons are full or both crescent, to meditate, chant, or perform rites of passage. Burial rituals could involve the timing of a body's placement under a particular moon phase, with cemeteries arranged in rows that mirror the orbits of the moons themselves. Philosophy flourishes. Under their light, thinkers debate whether duality is fundamental to the universe. They argue whether Luna and Selene represent the external and internal self, the known and unknown, the rational and emotional. Debates swirl about whether reality is governed by cycles of opposition or moments of rare celestial accord. Entire schools of thought evolve around the idea that human identity is not singular but orbital, always circling, always changing phase, sometimes casting shadow, sometimes shining bright. On a practical level, even agriculture bends to their rhythm. Not only crops, but livestock cycles are adapted. Animal breeders time births to moon cycles for optimal health. Beekeepers track honey production by moonlight. Fish farms use lunar-synchronized lighting to mimic ideal breeding conditions. Some vineyards boast labels that announce their grapes were harvested beneath a rare twin full moon, marketing lunar terroir as a sign of excellence. Global culture develops rituals for the rarest of events, moments when both moons are full, high, and unclouded. These double luminary nights are seen as times of clarity, peace, or magic. Some countries declare national holidays. Others host silent meditations, concerts, or sky-watching vigils. Children stay up late with parents and grandparents, watching the heavens, learning to measure time not in seconds, but in shadows, not in minutes, but in moonlight. In those moments, when the wind is still and the air is saturated with silver and blue, humanity feels itself woven into something older than language and deeper than science. A lineage not of blood, but of orbit, carried in the motion of stone. Above sky, of light across water, of thought beneath stars. The moons continue. They do not pause for prayer or politics. They turn, they shine, they vanish and reappear. And all the while, the Earth listens. Not as a passive partner, but as a resonant body, shaped and reshaped by the ever-turning gaze of Luna and Selene. As humanity progresses further into the age of interconnectivity and spacefaring dreams, the presence of two moons begins to redefine what it means to be human under the stars. Technology, culture, and consciousness become lunar-inflected. No longer merely objects in the sky, Luna and Selene evolve into frameworks, orienting systems around which knowledge, identity, and possibility are arranged. Like two eyes watching. From above, they remind the world below of its place in a celestial clockwork, more intricate than anything imagined when Earth had but one moon. In the world of science and data, lunar duality becomes an organizing principle. Climate models incorporate the delicate interplay of tidal shifts influenced by both satellites. Long-range forecasting uses not only solar input, but moon-moon resonance cycles to predict decades-long changes in sea levels and rainfall patterns. Computational tools simulate three-body, gravitational interactions at the local scale to understand how microscopic ecosystems, like coral colonies or salt marshes, adapt to subtle fluxes in tide strength. Even time itself is restructured, while days and years remain solar by necessity. New time units based on lunar rhythm are established. A lunalene might represent the number of Earth days it takes for Luna and Selene to return to the same phase alignment. In everyday life, this timekeeping unit becomes shorthand. A project deadline might be due in half a lunelin. A wedding anniversary might be celebrated every third lunelin, aligning each time with the moon phase it began under. Time becomes a poetic mixture of orbit and purpose. In space exploration, the moons become stepping stones to the cosmos. Because each moon differs in mass, density, and orbital behavior, the engineering challenges of working on them are distinct. Luna, being larger and closer, becomes the industrial hub. Its surface dotted with solar farms, launch catapults, underground labs, and habitat domes. Selene, lighter and further away, is chosen for quieter functions. Observatories, art residencies, bioarchives. Artists paint in low gravity, composing works under crescent light. Musicians build instruments that sound different in Selene's thinner, dust-suspended air. Philosophers visit to write in solitude, gazing back at Earth and its other moon, pondering asymmetry as a source of meaning. The moons even enter fashion. In a world lit more often by natural night glow, clothing design evolves to interact with moonlight. Fabrics are created that shimmer more brightly under Luna or appear translucent under Selene's colder tones. People wear garments with woven lunar fibers that glow faintly at certain moon phases. Perfumes claim to bond differently with skin. Oils depending on which moon is full. Jewelry pieces contain microcompasses that align with moonrise. Lunar aesthetics become not just taste, but orientation, a way to express where in the orbit you stand. Language transforms to accommodate the constant presence of the two moons. New verbs emerge. One might loon, meaning to withdraw into private thought under a bright moon, or Selene, meaning to drift into reverie under soft light. Poets build verses in double rhyme structures, mirroring the symmetry of the heavens. Writers describe cities as two-lamped or moon-kissed, at dual zenith. Emotions are classified by phase combinations. Joy under double crescent. Sorrow beneath twin wanings. Longing during lunar opposition. Technology harnesses the lunar cycles for everything from energy to emotion tracking. Smart homes adjust window, tint, and lighting temperature based on the moon's positions. Sleep algorithms sync alarm clocks with moonset to encourage natural waking. Watches and phones include dual lunar modes, showing where each moon is, their elevation, and when the next shared horizon event will occur. People begin to plan dinner parties, concerts, and therapy sessions around specific configurations. trusting the moons as guides to mood and momentum. In rural zones, farmers develop entire agricultural systems around double lunar calendars. Certain mushrooms only fruit during 3-day gaps in the moon's light overlap. Bees become active when both moons cast faint nightlight, leading to peak pollination windows under twin gibbous skies. Crops bred under this environment grow sturdier, accustomed to fast tidal changes and constant lunar stimulus. Across regions, communities exchange seeds and practices according to moon cycle compatibility, sharing knowledge coded in orbit rather than longitude. In megacities, towers are designed with curved facades that bend moonlight into art. At night, the buildings themselves become lunar sculptures, casting long twin shadows onto skywalks below. Parks are shaped around lunar gardens, where plants are selected to reflect or absorb moonlight in specific ways. Public installations display giant, slowly rotating moon models, each reflecting their real-time positions in the sky, like celestial clocks for an audience of millions. In the spiritual realm, pilgrimage routes emerge across continents, guiding travelers from points where both moons rise together to places where one eclipses the other. Monasteries on mountaintops align their altars with double moonrise days. Digital apps allow users to track soul alignments, logging emotions, memories, and thoughts alongside moon cycles. Meditation traditions teach breathing in rhythm with lunar tides, imagining the inhale as Luna's ascent and the exhale as Selene's descent. Children grow up under stories not of a single mysterious orb, but of a pair of celestial siblings, sometimes in harmony, sometimes at odds. Picture books show the moons playing hide-and-seek behind Earth's curve. Animated films imagine Luna and Selene as voices calling to different parts of the heart. Lunar literacy begins early. Toddlers learn to distinguish crescent types and count days to the next double full. Entire classrooms go silent as teachers project a twin moonrise, inviting awe as part of education. Military strategy also adjusts to the new norm. Satellite imaging, troop movement, and stealth planning are all reworked to account for dual shadow patterns. Naval forces rely on complex tidal data, ensuring ships avoid bottlenecks caused by supertide zones triggered by moon phase overlaps. Surveillance technology learns to filter double light distortions. Even espionage stories set in this world gain a new twist. Agents leaving trails only visible under specific moonlight, or sneaking through forests lit like noon at night. Entertainment turns lunar too. Sports teams divide by lunar phase allegiance. The Givus Cup pits waxing phase players against waning phase players in nightlit arenas. A popular game show features contestants solving puzzles under a time limit dictated by one moon disappearing behind clouds. Virtual reality developers build entire moon-inspired landscapes. One realm bathed in golden Luna glow, another in pale Selene shimmer, each with different game mechanics tied to light, gravity, and terrain. Economically, the moon's influence. New markets. Some companies specialize in lunar terroir products. Chocolates made during Selene's highest phase. Wines bottled during a dual eclipse. Tourism revolves around moon moments, hotels booking years in advance for peak alignments. Global advertising campaigns brand products as crafted under Luna or Selena certified, claiming psychological benefits or cosmic alignment. As scientific understanding deepens, humans no longer view their moons merely as spheres of rock. They are now seen as archives. Seismographs installed in both satellites record the faint tremors of Earth's breath. Cameras monitor solar radiation. Changes by how the moon's albedo fluctuates. The moons become observers, quietly logging data in silence. Each crater a fossil, each shadow a message, each rise a silent announcement of another turning Earth. In art, new forms emerge. Choreographers create moon ballets where dancers move in overlapping orbits, casting shadows upon each other. Sculptors carve dual-faced statues that reflect light differently depending on the lunar configuration. Writers craft entire novels structured around lunar time, each chapter unfolding in sync with the shifting sky. But even amid all this, some things remain beautifully human. People still fall in love under the moons. They still gaze up from rooftops and riversides, sharing silent moments under silver light. Children still make wishes upon the rising crescents. Elders still speak of nights when both moons turned red, or of the day when neither appeared. The sky remains not just a backdrop, but a presence, a silent witness to everything born, broken, and believed under its gaze. Two moons, one Earth, a story ever-changing, ever-turning, ever-luminous. In the endless turning of orbits and centuries, a two-moon Earth begins to express itself not only in the external trappings of culture and science, but in the deepest rhythms of life. The moons shape identity in ways so subtle, so intertwined with the marrow of civilization, that to remove them now, even hypothetically, would be to unweave the fabric of what humanity has become. Luna and Selene, once barren satellites in the sky, now echo through everything. From the push of waves on forgotten coasts to the choice of words in a love letter penned at midnight. The influence of dual moons has long since moved past symbolic and gravitational domains. In biotechnology, researchers now study the impact of lunar exposure on circadian regulation, discovering that not only melatonin levels, but certain patterns of gene expression fluctuate under different moonlight intensities and combinations. Plants exposed to simulated dual full moons exhibit accelerated blooming cycles, while microorganisms adjust their reproductive timing to lunar shadow windows. Those brief intervals when both moons are simultaneously eclipsed or blocked by cloud cover. Laboratories race to harness these insights for practical applications, medications timed to peak effectiveness during specific phases, wearable biosensors that sync with moon-based hormonal rhythms, and therapeutic environments designed to mimic lunar harmony. This technology filters into mental health care. Clinicians use lunar pattern tracking in diagnostics, observing behavioral shifts during opposing phase alignments, prescribing adjusted light therapy for lunar-sensitive depression, or developing meditation modules personalized to an individual's moon response profile. Sleep studies no longer ask how many hours one gets, but under which moon they rest best. Hospitals incorporate lunar observatories on rooftops, not for astronomy, but for wellness. Recovery rooms are oriented toward specific lunar paths, and patients often choose treatment schedules not just by availability, but by moonlight. In the arts, the dual moons become more than muses. They are collaborators. Interactive sculptures change shape or color depending on which moon is visible. Musicians compose duets that modulate their structure when performed under different moon configurations, using software that listens to lunar data in real time. Dancers rehearse under synchronized projectors simulating the subtle light angles of Selene and Luna together, casting layered shadows that become part of the choreography. Even digital art evolves, with moon-driven NFTs changing form each night, tied to the exact position and phase of both moons. Languages adapt further. Entire lexicons emerge around describing sky moments. Valoon might refer to the velvet, blue tint of twilight when both moons are crescent. Solaric could denote a night made bright as silver by a full Selene, while Lunox suggests the overcast pallor of a night when Luna hides behind clouds, casting the world into a waiting silence. In romantic phrases, lovers speak of wishing in the double hush, a term for the moment before both moons rise, when the world holds its breath. These words creep into legal texts, scientific papers, bedtime stories. Eventually, they are no longer new, they are native. technology continues to evolve under lunar guidance. Architecture now includes responsive surfaces, panels on rooftops or walls that absorb moonlight and emit soft glows indoors. Not for energy efficiency, but for psychological comfort. Urban design includes moonwells, open-air columns that allow people in crowded cities to catch a glimpse of at least one moon, no matter where they stand. Parks install lunar-responsive installations. Giant petals that bloom only under Selene's waning crescent or spiral sculptures that rotate slowly, casting braided shadows on moonlit lawns. Religious practices deepen in complexity and diversity. Dual moon calendars become central to worship. Some traditions revere the moons as voices of the divine, Luna speaking in steady rhythms, Selene in fleeting emotional bursts. Devotional paths branch into twin disciplines, the lunate path of order and clarity, and the Selenic path of intuition and change. Temples are designed to track specific alignments, their halls flooded with pale brilliance only during rare moments. When both moons pass overhead together, pilgrims travel for years to reach these sites at the perfect phase, where architecture, astronomy, and belief converge into epiphany. Politics adapts to lunar cycles. Elections in some regions are scheduled based on historic dual full moon occurrences, believed to enhance clarity of judgment. Laws might require certain civic ceremonies to occur during balanced lunar opposition, to symbolically ensure fairness and symmetry. In remote territories, local councils even use lunar alignment as a method of conflict resolution, scheduling reconciliations or declarations of peace only under the symbolic calm of the double crescent. When shadows are minimal and equal on all sides, military strategy and national defense integrate lunar data streams. Surveillance drones operate in coordination with moonlight cycles, exploiting dual illumination or navigating during shadow crossings for stealth. High-altitude communications towers shift signal protocols to adapt to atmospheric distortions caused by joint moonlight. The sky itself becomes a security variable, sometimes friend, sometimes threat, depending on how the moons align. In international treaties, clauses now include terms based on lunar phase overlap, marking periods of de-escalation or limited operations in accordance with long-held symbolic meanings. Even finance bends to the moons. Markets begin observing patterns in consumer behavior that align with lunar activity. Analysts publish reports not only on economic indicators, but on lunar impulse indexes, predicting periods of high spending or savings based on moon phase data. Advertising campaigns launch around rare moon events, and businesses brand themselves as double phase certified, claiming that their ethics or production cycles follow lunar models of balance and renewal. The entertainment industry, never far from popular sentiment, goes Ellen. Film festivals are timed with rare alignments. Concerts feature live moon data displays in real time, synchronizing musical climaxes with actual celestial motion. Weeks release collections designed under specific lunar combinations. Makeup lines include Luna tones and Selene sheens. While fragrances are marketed with lunar cycle care instructions, apply only during the first quarter for best effect. At the philosophical level, the moons become a symbol of contrast and coexistence. Thinkers debate whether true understanding lies in the space between them. The twin orbits become metaphors for memory and anticipation, for fear and courage, for past and future. One school of thought believes each moon reflects a different version of reality, Luna representing what is, and Selene, what might have been. Others insist the moons are projections of the same truth, filtered through different lenses, proving that contradiction is not failure, but richness. Schools and universities incorporate moon awareness into curricula. Students learn to see time as curved and layered. Literature classes examine how dual light sources affect narrative tone. Math classes explore orbital harmonics not just as physics, but as poetry. Philosophy classes host debates titled In Defense of Asymmetry, challenging the idea that balance requires sameness. The moons also inspire resilience. During global crises, natural disasters, economic collapses, pandemics, people find solace in looking up. The moons do not change their course. They remind humanity that chaos and order are never far apart, that beauty endures even in overlapping shadow. Songs written during dark times include verses about watching the crescent rise again, about one moon always returning before the other, like a friend reaching out ahead of schedule. In the quietest places, where the world has not yet drowned out its sky, people gather for moon silence. Communities sit in circles without speaking, watching as the moons rise, casting twin shadows across deserts, forests, and oceans. In those moments, no technology is needed. No data, no religion, no art. Only light, movement, and memory. A reminder that to exist is to orbit, to move in rhythm with something greater than the self. 2 moons, 1 planet, a billion reflections. Across millennia of dual moonlight, humanity becomes more than a civilization of Earth. It becomes a civilization of rhythm. No longer tied solely to the arc of the sun, the lives of people, animals, oceans, and thoughts are drawn forward on invisible lunar strings. The moons, Luna and Selene, no longer hover passively above. They participate in life's unfolding. Each rise and fall, casting delicate edits across the script of existence. With continued technological evolution, entire cities are built to live in harmony with the moons. These lunar ecologies, as they come to be known, are self-sustaining urban ecosystems architected around lunar cycles. They mimic the crescents and curves of the moons, their buildings coiling like orbit lines, their streets lined with solar-lunar hybrid lighting. Public transit operates on moon-synchronized schedules, with night routes calibrated to the amount of ambient lunar glow. Food production, waste management, and energy cycles are all governed not by 24-hour day-night rhythms alone, but by complex moonlight-based timers. In coastal zones, sea farms are managed with tidal matrices calculated from the overlapping gravities of Luna and Selene. Crops grown in saltwater bays, such as seaweeds and algae, thrive under lunar-managed water flux, with harvesters adjusting collection schedules to moments of least turbidity. A feature predicted by modeling dual gravitational vectors. These methods give birth to an entirely new agricultural field, lunar economy. The study and practice of water-based farming shaped by dual satellite influence. Meanwhile, inland megafarms adopt a complementary science, bimoon agrology. Here, fields are covered with translucent smart membranes that open and close depending on moonlight exposure, allowing plants optimized doses of cool nocturnal radiance. Sensors track every phase shift while farmers rely on centuries of data, showing which crops prefer which moon's presence during germination, flowering, or fruiting. Tomatoes bred under Luna's pale rise develop slightly sweeter skin. Beans germinated under Selene's waning gibbous tend to climb straighter. Knowledge, once folk belief, is now empirical agricultural strategy. The twin moons also drive advancements in clean energy. Engineers developed the concept of lunar photovoltaic contrast, panels that can extract microcurrents from the differential cooling of surfaces under dual moonlight. Though not as powerful as solar panels, these devices prove essential in polar regions and dark zones, where constant lunar presence can be used to run low-demand systems. Researchers further experiment with gravitic flex generators, harvesting minute mechanical movement from tidal shifts caused by moon gravity in underwater installations, converting the ceaseless lunar dance into sustainable electricity. As Earth's orbit continues slowly changing over eons, the moons themselves drift further apart in timing. Their conjunctions grow rarer, their shadows harder to align. This rarity turns lunar events into global obsessions. Dual eclipses, once a spectacular but semi-predictable phenomenon, now occur once in a generation. When they approach, the planet begins to prepare. Airports sell out, roads fill, children are pulled from school. World leaders declare temporary holidays. And when the day arrives, people climb mountains, sail to clear sea skies, gather in frozen valleys, and flood deserts to witness the moons blur into shadow in the same breath. Silence holds the world while both lights vanish, and then, slowly, return. These moments deepen a sense of shared time. In a species so often divided by borders, ideologies, and histories, the moons remain common. They are not symbols of one culture or one language. They shine on all skin tones, all hemispheres, all beliefs. They remind everyone, every child born, and every elder dying that they are under the same pattern. In a way, no flag or anthem ever could. Luna and Selene become the emblems of planetary citizenship. Philosophy turns lunar once again. Schools of thought emerge centered on orbital ethics, urging societies to model themselves on lunar behavior, cycling between brightness and retreat, acting in gravitational cooperation, not dominance. Thinkers write of Selenian patience, the ability to yield power at the right time, as Selene often does, to let Luna lead the sky. Others advocate Lunarian clarity, a doctrine of action during moments of full presence. The moons become metaphors for governance, for self-care, for interpersonal dialogue. Literature, already rich with moon imagery, evolves into a genre unto itself. Lunaspire novels become popular, narratives structured to follow moon cycles, with plot and tone shifting in accordance with lunar phases. Some writers pen entire books in chapter patterns matching Selene's arc, beginning softly and waning into revelation. In theater, performances are held outdoors under the open sky, their lighting design dependent on the real moons above. If a cloud covers one, a moment of improvisation unfolds. The sky becomes director and stagehand at once. In digital life, moons become data markers. Messaging apps use moon phases to timestamp communication. Virtual assistants schedule meetings based on lunar compatibility. Social media adopts moonlighting features, filters, and themes that sync with orbital changes. Personal journals keep dual lunar logs, noting dreams and moods in tandem with the sky's face. Algorithms now learn from this information, recommending music, meals, or meditation styles optimized for the current lunar configuration. As artificial intelligence matures, it is trained not only in human language and logic, but in moon-inspired behavior. Emotional models incorporate lunar rhythms, mimicking human emotional arcs that subtly align with moonlight. Robots built for caregiving are programmed to increase or decrease their vocal brightness and facial softness depending on the moon phase, helping users feel more emotionally in sync. In this way, even machines learn to respond to the ancient rhythm of orbits. In deep space exploration, the moons become launch hubs and symbolic guides. As humans build stations on Mars and orbiting habitats around Jupiter's moons, the idea of two moons above becomes a nostalgic motif. Colonists digitally project Luna and Selene into their Martian night sky, creating artificial constellations that echo home. New rituals form, colonists celebrating Earth's double moonrise as a sacred moment even from afar. No matter how distant, the body, Earth, remains the cradle, and its twin moons the lullaby whispered across light years. Back home, education becomes inseparable from lunar awareness. Schools teach orbital mechanics not as isolated physics, but as a living geography. Children learn moonrise tables like multiplication. They graduate under archways shaped to mimic lunar phases. Exams are sometimes scheduled to match specific moonlight for optimal concentration. Entire academic theories develop suggesting higher retention during certain phase overlaps. In libraries, books are sorted not only by subject, but by lunar, reading weight, categories that match mood and clarity to particular moon alignments. In daily life, people still pause to look up. In rural towns and hypercities alike, rooftops host moon gardens, lounges where people recline in silence under sky. Some whisper poems, others pray. Some simply watch, the way ancestors once did, when both moons were younger and the world was still finding its rhythm. The sky is no longer backdrop, it is intimacy, connection, meaning the moons remain the quiet constants in a chaotic age. They do not tweet, they do not argue, they do not falter. They glide, they grow, they fade, they return. And in their slow circling, they teach a lesson most often forgotten. That movement can be gentle, that change need not be abrupt. That time, though relentless, can also be beautiful. And through all of this, through technology and touch, through science and shadow, the people of Earth still dream beneath them. Children dream of flying to both. Artists dream of painting them with fingers made of stars. Lovers dream of kissing where twin moons reflect on lakes. And the Earth itself, battered and blooming, turns slowly to lights held forever in its sky like promises made long ago. And so, beneath the twin lights that have watched over Earth for untold generations, humanity stands, not in stillness, but in orbit. Everything has changed, yet the moons remain. They cast their silent silver over forests and oceans, cities and deserts, dreams and fears. They have pulled on tides and hearts, carved the rhythms of daily life and deep time alike. Two moons, Luna and Selene, have become not just companions to Earth, but co-authors of its story, gently turning the pages with every rise and fall. The moons have long since transcended the realm of mere celestial mechanics. They are woven into identity itself. When a child is born, it is not just the stars or the date that is noted, it is which moon was visible and in what phase. Families hang dual lunar calendars above dinner tables. Elders remember significant moments by saying, "It was the night when Luna was full, and Selene had just begun to rise." Personal milestones are anchored not in hours or weeks, but in alignments and crescents. In science, the twin moons continue to stretch imagination. Quantum lunar simulations are run in research stations high in the Andes and deep beneath the sea, modeling how gravitational duality might affect subatomic particles. Lunar entanglement experiments test whether particles behave differently under alternating moonlight exposure. Some early results are inconclusive, others spark headlines. Whether it's a new state of matter discovered only during dual moon eclipses, or a neurological resonance pattern found in sleeping infants that matches lunar cycles, the possibilities remain endless. Art, too, reaches a quiet apex in lunar resonance. Entire symphonies are now composed to be performed only during very specific alignments. These compositions are unfinished unless heard under the right sky, making each performance a singular, unrepeatable event. Museums host lunar light galleries, rooms where paintings are seen only by moonlight filtered through rotating mirrors that recreate exact configurations of Luna and Selene from historical dates. Visitors witness not just brushstrokes, but history. Reilluminated, and always, there is the presence of story. In every corner of the world, myths evolve in real time. In one region, the moons are said to be the final thoughts of the Earth, made visible. In another, they are lovers who forever circle each other, never quite touching, keeping the planet between them like a shared secret. In yet another, the moons are guides to the afterlife, with Luna lighting the path for the wise, and Selene guiding those still learning. These stories don't replace science. They coexist with it, symbol and fact dancing together like light and shadow across the skin of the world. Culture adapts endlessly. Festivals become more elaborate. Celebrations of the double full moon involve dancing, lanterns, slow feasts, and quiet skywatching. In cities, high above the noise, observatories welcome visitors with padded benches. Warm drinks and telescopes pointed not at distant galaxies, but at the familiar orbits of home. People pay to sit in silence just to feel the weight of centuries behind every slow movement of light. And in the end, the moons even reshape how people understand mortality. Tombstones carry inscriptions, not just of names and dates, but of moon phases passed beneath a waning Luna and a rising Selene. Cremation ashes are launched during lunar apogees. New traditions rise, moon-sent letters written by the living. Stored in vaults until both moons reach a certain alignment decades later, then read by descendants under the same sky. The past and future whisper across lunar cycles, binding generations. In quiet promise, but perhaps the most profound change comes not from science, art, or even technology. It is in the ordinary moments, the overlooked pauses, the unnoticed glances skyward. A person walking home alone on a cold night sees two arcs above, one low in amber, one high in silver. They stop, not to calculate or document, not to analyze or praise. They simply look. And in that looking, they remember something unspoken, that they are not alone, that the world is not arbitrary, that time is a dance and they are part of it. The moons don't speak, but they say enough, and they say it every night. Luna, pulling softly, holding memory. Selene, drifting quiet, casting dreams. Together, they trace patterns across ocean and stone, forest and skin, marking the earth with light that never speaks but always means. And beneath them, the world continues. People love, build, fall, rise. They breathe. They hope. They sleep. And for those who look up as they drift into slumber, the last thing they see is the light of twin moons, unchanged, unjudging, unmoving in their endless motion. Thank you for watching this video from the Sleepless Scientist, a channel where we let the cosmos whisper until you rest. If somehow we've kept you awake with this quiet journey through a world of two moons, we apologize, but we also hope your imagination is now adrift, gently orbiting a thought. Please remember to like, subscribe, and comment below with your location and the time where you're watching. We love knowing who's out there, under which sky, beneath which moon. And now, we'll leave you with soft ambient sounds, lunar, wind, ocean tides, distant echoes. Let your mind float free. Let the moons take over. And good night.